He doesn't just live there.
No, my daughter had her baby.
Oh, they did. Oh, congrats. Congrats. Very nice.
Putting apples there.
Very nice.
You know, I think you can.
I don't want her to see the complaint.
I'm not sure about that.
But I don't know.
Yeah, you're, yeah,
Huh?
yeah.
Corn.
you're- I
Sort
know
of corn.
What?
you're, I know you're, have her back.
Because somebody could.
I do not like how it's compared. No, I probably was probably better there. Like you're putting on a sandwich. That's not how you make corned beef and cabbage. I'm not even Irish, and I know that. Just like a sandwich, and then laid it on top of cabbage.
Somebody's definitely in that office.
I'm like, total. I try to put that, but I'm not.
Well, it's 5:30. I apologize. There's not a copy of the minutes were sent to the council. The copy of the actual resolution is not
Not even
here.
the minutes, just the agenda. I didn't put them in.
The resolution mimics the one that's in your
I
packet
did.
for the council accepting them. This is one, the consensus to act favorably on the resolution, and we'll have a draft sent out. Do we have the
I
resolution?
think, yeah,
Is that what we
this is
have?
it, right?
That is it.
Oh, you
That-
have it?
yeah.
I don't have it.
We do have it.
Yeah, it came via email.
Okay,
Yeah, we got it.
so apparently it was sent out, so at this point, I will call the meeting to order and entertain a motion to accept the minutes from our December 17th. Moved by Mr. Palomini, do I have a second by KCW? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now entertain a motion for resolution 2019-01, which is accepting 8 properties. Moved by Mr. Riggi. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Perazzo. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Resolution's adopted unanimously. Any other business to come before the agency?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
W, Amy, all in favor?
Aye.
The agency stands adjourned.
Call to order health and recreation, and we have 2 items on the agenda. The first item is the golf course season pass rate. Bailey.
So we had a microphone here earlier.
I do not see one.
It was there earlier.
Sorry.
It must not be working because they were, actually, I don't think anything's wrong. I don't see any blinking lights up there either.
I know Zeb is here.
Yeah,
We
he
had
was
some
here.
technical difficulties last.
Yes, yeah. Do not adjust yourself.
Go ahead, Mr. Bailey.
Oh, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you. We had a meeting with our golf advisory committee, and we were proposing on raising our season pass rates $50, which in the grand scheme of things isn't a very big raise, but that's definitely helps with our, our budgetary needs. It was going over some numbers. In 2013, we had 40 season passes that we sold. Now we're up to 109.
Wow.
So, as the golf course continues to improve with all the projects we've been doing, I think that number is just going to continue to climb. And I'm expecting that number to actually exceed 109 this year, as I've been getting a lot of interest from area golf courses, area players, and the phone's been ringing quite often now since I've been in the pro shop. So it's nice to see that. So I think it'll definitely help with our budget at the end of the year. And like I said, it's not a real big increase, because it won't hit the pockets of the player too much, but it definitely will help our budget needs. And as we go forward with some of the projects that we want to do in the future, that'll only help to solidify that. So we're asking that we just raise it for $50, just for the season passes. In fact, we've only raised it once in the last 7 years. So that certainly helps. And just a couple other quick notes in case everybody was wondering when we plan on opening. There's still a good amount of snow cover out there, and there's a lot of cleanup for the ground crew that has to do yet, so. I expect a lot of that to be gone this week. We have some warm temperatures, right, John? We got some
Yes,
warm
we do.
temperatures coming, so it's nice to see it'll be in the 50s, and I think a lot of that snow cover will be gone. And from what I talked with Mr. Sesley, our superintendent, he's really excited. He thinks the golf course got through the winter pretty good. The greens are, they've been exceptional in the last couple of years. I expect nothing less. A couple of programs that we're excited about. We've already set our junior golf clinics for the month of July, after July 4th. And we've had some pretty good growth there over the last couple of years. So it's good to see the youth are starting to get into the game more, and we've actually seen our numbers climb, over 30 participants last year as opposed to 15 the year before. So that number continues to grow. So we're really excited about this year, and, we're going to continue to keep pushing that golf course.
Ms. Perazzo.
So you said once in 7 years we raised the season pass rate. How much did we raise at the last? It was $50. And how many years, was that 7 years ago? Or was it,
I want to say it was in 2015.
okay, so 4 years ago, okay.
If I can get that for you, if you want me to email you those numbers.
Yeah, that would be
Pretty
great.
sure it was 15.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was a $50 raise, yep.
Any other comment?
I'll move it.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. Next item is the baseball field fee.
Yeah.
Youth baseball.
Yeah, it's been brought to my attention that since the resolution we had last year establishing fees for our youth baseball groups using our diamonds at Central Park, there are a couple of organizations that we want to make sure that they're exempt from paying those fees. One is Schenectady High School, of course, with their own city kids utilizing that would be the A Diamond. In exchange for that, they're going to be bringing some baseball infield mix. No, not infield mix for the A Diamond. Alex, what were they? Infield mix. Infield mix. Okay, for the B and C Diamonds. Why would they use infield mix for that?
Because there's that stuff in artificial turf. Right?
You'll have to ask Phil Mazek on that.
All right, well, whatever, the high school it's gonna be donating, purchasing that infield mix and taking care of the other two diamonds for us as well. And also, we're looking to exempt 2 Babe Ruth leagues as well from using the B and C diamond. There'll be each league will be playing 10 games at each of the diamonds, so we would exempt them from that $75 fee. And the Rebels, which is also a Babe Ruth team, is going to do 10 additional games on the B and C. They will be paying the additional $75 for that. So we're going to exempt them 10 games each, both Babe Ruth leagues from the B and C, and the high school, which I believe does 8 league games at the A Diamond. All right, and that's kind of how we're looking to move that forward. These are all city of Schenectady residents, strictly.
Go ahead, Ms.
So are there any youth leagues then playing in the park that are actually incurring that cost that we're over?
They would have been if we didn't do
No,
this.
are there any other leagues?
No, oh, not city leagues though, not city leagues.
But
Not city leagues.
playing, and again, trying to discount the B and C diamond, but on A diamond, people play, looking to generate some revenue
Yeah.
from that and have enough coming in to offset the expenses for maintenance and upkeep.
Go ahead, Mr. Rigney.
What is the Rebels?
That's an offshoot of another Babe Ruth league as well. They have so many kids that are both enrolled in both leagues. So the Rebels, which is by Jason McClure, I think his name is, and Mickey Peters. McClure. And Mickey Peters, they were also with the Jason.
No, is this a traveling team?
But they're with Babe Ruth and then traveling as well, correct. But these are all
They're all
city kids.
Schenectady kids?
All
City of
Schenectady,
Schenectady
all city of
kids?
Schenectady kids, yep, both. So I think it's a nice opportunity for our kids, and again, they do not want to play in the A Diamonds, because we had some concern about some of these youth being only 13 years of age, and that the A Diamond would be too big, for them to throw, the 90-foot bases. Still 90-foot on the B and C as well, but they were very, very happy to get to use those two diamonds, during the summer schedule. But again, corner legislation, Carl, you're gonna be able to draft something up for us to vote on Monday?
Yeah, that won't be a problem.
Right, because again, according to what we passed last year, everybody has to pay the fees, so we just want to make this clear that we're exempting the high school and the two big ones.
But not the Rebels. The Rebels are paying, you said?
No, they were paying for each of those are going to get 10 free games,
Yeah.
but the Rebels need 20 slots, 20 to 24 slots. So they will be paying for the additional 10 to 12 additional game dates that they're going to be using. That's $75 per game. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? May I have a motion?
I'll move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any other business before Health and Rec?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Call to order public safety. We have one item on the agenda, the drug disposal receptacle and the police department. Ms. Karen?
Thank you. I asked the chief to come tonight
Oh,
to
that's
kind of
good.
give us an overview of what I think we want to get done here. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Clifford.
Okay, so a dispenser that would be in the police lobby that would accept drugs, whether they be illegal or pharmaceutical drugs that are no longer needed. We want to place it in the lobby. Right now, the sheriff's department has one in their lobby, and we could partner with CVS Pharmacy, and there's a couple other organizations we could get them from in order to do that. It's part of our strategy to reduce the harm that illegal drugs bring to our community. We have the enforcement piece already going with our special unit that investigates narcotic drugs. We're also working on programs to help people that are addicted and to help them get help so that there's no longer that demand for these illegal drugs. So this is just another piece of the solution, which is to try to put the message out to the community that if you have drugs that you no longer use or need, bring them down and dispose of them in a safe manner so that they don't fall into the wrong hands and possibly somebody gets addicted.
So, and
Go ahead.
sorry, I just want to elaborate a little bit. I think it's really important with the epidemic that we have with prescription drugs and heroin in and throughout all communities. No one's exempt from it. So I think it's really important that we have some sort of a receptacle that people will feel safe and actually be able to go drop them off and not worry about anything. And I think we were talking about having some services available, at least directing them to where they can have some services to help them get off of any kind of addictions. So,
That's correct. We have a program that we'll be bringing forward pretty soon, but it's along those lines.
Go ahead, Ms. Price.
Could you just talk about the security of the receptacle? I know that unfortunately, one of the problems we've had at Proctor is we have sharps containers. We've had people try to break into them, which is sad and unfortunate. So what security measures are there around making sure nobody can break into it, nobody can walk off with it, that kind of thing?
Sure. It's a pretty secure device that they have at the sheriff's department, so I'm modeling it after that one, figuring we could get something similar. It's about the size of a mailbox, so it's very
Oh,
heavy.
so it's big.
And it's got the pull-down lever when you
Okay.
drop it, you
Great.
can't just put your hand in there and grab them. So it's a fairly secure device, it's heavy, but I would want to work with our buildings department to make sure that it was secure and the space that is put in. We're also have to figure out where to put it, because we wouldn't want to have somebody go into the court officers during the daytime and when court's open with drugs, so we have to figure out a way to have it in a place where they could get to it before approaching.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
Possibly in the vestibule, we could find a space, we'd have to figure that out, but we'll do that before we actually install it.
And, go ahead, Ms.
So another question, so are we accepting the full prescription containers? Are we recommending they take their names out, scratch them off, or just, what's the recommended way that I'm gonna return my drugs, if you will?
I don't know the answer to that. I'd imagine that there's a procedure in place that the pharmacy uses, and I would imagine also that it's private. So
when you dispose of it, they have a privacy, there's a sense of privacy knowing that they'll be disposed of in a secure manner. But we could certainly research that and come back to you with that question.
So then one more thought, so it's not our folks that are gonna be emptying this, it'll be actually the company that you're contracting with will be emptying this?
That's the way Correct, that's the way I believe it is. It's either the company itself or an organization affiliated with it that properly disposes of it.
Very good.
We need to move a motion here on this.
Is that a need resolution on this?
Resolution.
Fine, they can just do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Just
Just discussion.
Just discussion, and you're gonna go ahead and do it.
Right. Very good. Thank you, Chief, very good.
Thank you. All right. All right, any other business for public safety?
Yes, Mr. Mulder.
Go ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Thank you. There's an ongoing issue in my neighborhood, and I think we're gonna have to address this somehow. There's deer that are crossing Campbell Avenue on a regular basis, and I came down to if everybody can see this, there's a well-meaning resident that is putting apples in Fairview Park. So the deer are crossing Campbell Avenue, and that's the result of what happens. The deer was hit and killed in front of my house. Now, I'm concerned not only for the deer. I called DEC about this. They came and looked at it. They cleared that off. I know it was all gone, all the food, but 2 days later, the food was back. The insomniac that I am, worrying about all this city business, I was up at 1 o'clock in the morning, and I looked out my front window, and there was 2 or 3 deer were crossing Campbell Avenue just about in front of my house. So this is an ongoing, I think, public safety issue. We'll put the deer aside for the motorists, because that motorist did hit the deer and did turn it into the police department, and there had to be a lot, I didn't see that, I heard it, but I didn't see it. But there was a lot of damage on the car, and I know I repaired deer hits in my former career. And one of them, the hoof went through a windshield and severely injured a woman, one that I repaired. And the woman was really in bad shape from the deer flying over the hood and into the windshield. So I hate to say it, but I think maybe we need signs there in that area to make motorists aware that they could encounter a deer crossing Campbell Avenue, because it's ongoing for 2 or 3 years. This has been going on, and now this is the first one I know that's been hit and killed. I don't know if any have been injured, but I think it behooves us to at least warn motorists, and maybe we can get John Coluccio to make a couple of signs in that area of Fairview Park. That's where it is, between 6th and just past my house where they cross the road. But I think it's in our best interest to make motorists aware that they could encounter something they wouldn't expect to see on a city street. And the proof is here, you know. There's a dead deer. That's what I found when I brought my garbage to the, 5 o'clock in the morning. Was not a pretty sight. And that deer was at least 100 pounds, because when the city picked it up, 2 guys had a heck of a time getting that in the truck. It wasn't a light deer, it was a good sized deer. So they are getting fed. Now, whether it's all coming from here or not, I can't tell you. But this obviously is what's drawing them into Fairview Park, why they're crossing. I would wish that if I see who's doing it, I haven't done it yet, I've been asking, can't get an answer, I tell them, please bring it over to Tiller's Park and bring it up towards the woods, and that'll keep this from happening. But they're out there, and I've seen them myself. I've seen 6 or 8 either last winter or winter before in Fairview Park. But now at least I know the reason why they're being fed. That's one of the reasons. DEC frowns upon this because they have problems even digesting some food that might go out there. But I did call them, and I know an NCON officer showed up. I think maybe he cleared that off, and that was it. He said he couldn't post it, no feeding. Maybe I thought it was. As a matter of fact, Lieutenant Masheron looked into it. He found some rules in DEC, but, how are they going to know who's doing this? But I would like to see ultimately, maybe if we could at least warn motorists of this issue. I think it'd be a good thing to do. At least they'll be aware to keep their eyes open in that area that they could encounter a deer, because it can do a lot of damage and somebody could be seriously hurt. So, just for discussion, but I don't know how everybody feels about that, but I think it's a simple thing to do. Erect some signs going both ways, you know, so they'll be, and then you hate to see maybe a deer get injured and then it goes into the woods and that's another problem. You know, this deer unfortunately didn't, I don't think there was much else to do there, but the deer expired, so,
I'll have John look into it.
okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other businesses for public safety? Can I have a second?
Oh,
Miss-
second.
Oh, that's on my committee, right? No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Sorry. I want to open up city planning and development, and we have a couple of items on the agenda for Kristen.
Hello.
There you are. I thought I saw you come.
So as you know, we've been working with the land bank and our community development partners in trying to look at blight in the city and vacant lots. So what the list you see in front of you is the properties that we plan to demolish as part of light removal initiative. And we really tried to work to get an end use for most of these lots. So there's 8 of them on this phase 1 set of demolitions, 6 of which have an end use, which has been really important in the use of our HUD funding to not just have more vacant lots that need maintenance, but to actually find end uses for them. So you can see those listed, and we are just asking to enter contracts with those who will be taking those over, some of which you can see 410 and 412 will be for the Phoenix Walks Hamilton Hill Art Center project. They're going to be doing a sculpture garden across the street from their current facility on Schenectady Street. 410 Summit will be for New Choices. They're going to do a community garden there on an adjacent lot to their current facility. Habitat for Humanity will be doing a project at 1706 Cary Street. And then the 2 remaining lots will be sold to the adjacent neighbor. So just wondering if there are any questions. Again, most of these are all but the one on Cary Street with Habitat is part of our NRSA Neighborhood Revitalization Strategy area. So we're really trying to focus there, remove blight, and bring green space to the community.
Question?
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next one.
What is it?
The transfer of the properties
So
to
that's-
Sura.
So that's basically, yeah, just these same
That's
properties.
the same
transferring to
properties?
Sura,
Okay.
yep.
So we don't need to have a second motion on that, do we? Or can we just,
Yeah, it's separate.
it's separate? Okay.
I'll move
All right.
it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then third, we just, we had applied for a grant for Jerry Burrell Park improvements, from the Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation. So this is just adopting the resolution to accept those funds, and to bring improvements to that park on Schenectady Street.
I'll move it.
Ms. Porterfield?
So, I see it kind of indicates what's gonna be in there, so is this in concrete, is it, or is there still open discussion about, like, if a handball court isn't wanted, maybe some other type of court, or?
Yeah, we haven't actually got into the design process
Okay.
at all. This is just basically accepting the funds so that then we can, look to consultants in the neighborhood for input as to what the improvements will be.
Okay,
So that hasn't been determined yet.
thank you.
Anything else?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Kristen for this too.
Okay, next item is, Ms. Perazzo, discussion on Hamilton Hill Liquor Store.
Yes, actually, we need Kristen for this one too. We had talked 2 weeks ago about, we have significant concern in the Hamilton Hill neighborhood about a liquor store that's being proposed on Albany Street. And actually, there are some people here from Hamilton Hill that, Madam Chair, if we could hear from them, I would appreciate it, just to have a little bit of their input also. But I had expressed that I have concern that it would look like we were discriminating against one particular type of business. So how could we, how are some different ways that we could approach that to protect the interests and the integrity of that area of the neighborhood, but yet also listen to the concerns of the residents of that neighborhood.
Right, yeah, so I think, yeah, given that it is classified as a retail use and it is in the commercial district, we probably kind of went through, how the use is allowed, but given that, I mean, I would just say that we are working on amendments to the zoning code right now as we relook at our comprehensive plan. So through that process, over the next couple of months, hopefully we can look at, negative impacts of certain uses, like such as liquor stores or pawn shops or convenience stores, and talk about how to integrate some planning, through those amendments on those uses in particular neighborhoods.
Okay, and where does the liquor store stand in the process at this juncture?
I thought they were approved.
I think it was
It's
approved,
approved
yeah,
through
there
the
was
planning
no
commission.
way to deny, planning commission approval based on the zoning of that district and the use, so even though there was reluctance, we didn't have a
Right.
basis to deny that application, given the zoning of the district.
Even though there were some back taxes that came into play or something along those lines?
Yes, yeah, I think, I'm just looking at some notes here. I think the logic around that is just that the city would be preventing the property owner from being able to earn the return of investment on their property to pay back the taxes if we were to not allow them to operate their business. So I think that's what has been determined in the past. Maybe Carl knows a little bit more on that, I don't know, but just in terms of, you know, why we wouldn't be able to deny planning commission approval based on.
The general rule is, back taxes are not a reason to deny some type of approval coming from the city. And there are some exemptions to that, one of which is on certificate of use, but because this business doesn't require a certificate of use, that wouldn't come into play here.
And I believe I'm sorry, that's not my committee. My topic, not my committee.
Okay, so, just a little background, because, as, Ms. Peraza said, that this is in Hamilton Hill, the Neighborhood Association has had a lot of discussion around it, and, many people are opposed to it for various reasons. Not the least of which is there's been a lot of improvement in the neighborhood, and, so we don't want something that would detract from that or cause more places for people to loiter, which we have a lot of on Albany Street currently. In terms of, that, as Kristen has said, first of all, let me just give you a little bit of background. There was another group that wanted to bring in a wine and some kind of bar, but it was a place that would be public assembly, so therefore there was not enough parking, and so the planning commission
Could deny it, right?
could deny that particular one. This time it came forth, and that was not this didn't require a place to assemble. You just run up, get what you need, and drive away. So they couldn't deny it based on that. However, in discussing with the Neighborhood Association, there were opportunities in getting in touch with the State Liquor Authority, which we are pursuing, because they offer an opportunity for the public to speak about it and the impact on the neighborhood. So we are moving forward in terms of that, because not wanting anyone to not have a business in the neighborhood, that makes sense, I get it, but it just doesn't seem the best fit. We had a prior liquor store, like just one block down, it's no longer there, and it did cause problems, and people loitered a lot, and it just wasn't a good fit for the neighborhood. We know that Hamilton Hill has had problems over the years, but it's certainly the quality of life is improving, so we don't want to invite a business that would take away from that, and so that's where it is.
Maybe when we get into looking at allowable uses,
Right.
in that zoning district, as we make the amendments, we can really talk through that and see how we want to structure it moving forward.
So
I know that doesn't help with the
Yeah.
current situation,
but we are moving forward, trying to see if we can, and actually reached out to the person who is planning to open it to say, we have concerns about this. We don't want them to feel that we're just against them, but just we have some concerns about what this would do to the neighborhood.
Right.
So,
And I know there's people from the neighborhood.
So,
Ms. Perryman, did you want to just say it?
I have been in that neighborhood for 50 years. The neighborhood was flourishing, the city cut down the trees. So the neighborhood started changing the don't want liquor stores. The liquor stores, they bring in the wrong people. We are trying to be church by the people who need things for our children, not for the adults to go and liquor themselves up, but find something there to put for the children, or to beautify the place, beauty shops, laundromats, grocery stores with meat markets. That's what used to be on Albany Street. Now they're tearing down stuff, and we're afraid of what they're gonna put up there. But I don't think that whoever is going to try and put this liquor store is thinking about the community. Okay.
Thank you. And I just think
So-
we have someone from the church here too, that wants
So-
to. If you could come to the,
You know,
so that
this is
we can
not-
see. It's just, we
I know, I,
certainly have
no,
people
it-
come and talk at the table.
Good evening. My name is Lois Mitchell. I'm a member of the Drury Memorial African Methodist Zion Church on Hewitt Street. We were terribly distraught with the liquor store that was on the corner of Hewitt Street and Albany Street when it existed because of the element that hung around the liquor store. Remembering that we are not a community where everybody has a car. Not drive up, run in, hop in your car and drive up. It just isn't that way. There are many, many people in our community who walk up, buy their liquor, and stand outside the door. I do not condemn drinking. The church certainly does not condemn drinking. But the element that that liquor store drew to our community was horrendous. If you have doubt, if you just look back in the Gazette with the number of stabbings and murders and shootings that occurred right around that liquor store, you will see. So when we heard there was to be another liquor store 1 block up from that one, we were quite distraught. In addition, many of the members of our own community rely greatly on Sikkim, and they are directly, I mean directly, across the street from Sikkim, so that during the hours when Sikkim is not open, we have great concern of people hanging around in that very lovely open lot that Sikkim has for parking. Again, I say, the church wants very much for our community to prosper, and we're very excited with all the things that have been approved to change our neighborhood, to bring affordable housing into our community, to encourage our youth, the youth build and other programs such as that. But what the liquor store draws in our community is not what we need. Now, I happen to know and have lived in other areas of this city, and there have been liquor stores, but it's a different demographic. It's a different set of people with a different mindset. So I'm asking you to really, and I appreciate the effort that's going to be made related to zoning. My fear and concern is that it won't happen in time. So I came today to speak on behalf of our church and our concern and our desire to be of service. Again, directly across the street from our church is the brand new Joseph Allen building, which is beautiful, and we're proud of it. And we're proud of the fact that Joseph Allen was a member of your board, as well as our church. To add a negative, another convenience store, another liquor store, another bar to our community is not to enhance and shift the demographics of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, I think that voice is very, very important in this discussion, especially as codes, or the development department goes forward in looking to change the zoning codes. So I appreciate you allowing those people to speak, because I think that's an important voice.
I think
to
it's
table.
important. I'm not saying it's not. The problem we have here, it's already gone through the planning commission, and there's
I
not
understand.
anything we can do about
Yep,
it.
I understand that,
What I
but we're
was-
looking at changing zoning, so I
Okay.
think that voice is important when we're considering those changes.
So I would like to direct to each, the community members. The State Liquor Authority does hold hearings, so you really need to get and lobby the State Liquor Authority if you feel that strongly about it, and I would go back to previous history. They will look at that, so that, unfortunately, that is the direction that you're gonna have to go with this specific spot.
As I said, we're already doing that, the neighbors association.
All right. Next item on the agenda is Mr. McCarthy, Mayor? Nykerk, council
James submitted
reappointment.
for reappointment and one new person for the Nykerk Council. Recommended by the mayor, subject to council approval.
Ms.
Is
Braza.
the new person replacing someone?
They are, but I can't tell you who. These were submitted by Kay Ackerman from the council. Their internal process for vacancies.
Okay.
I'll move it.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a ceremonial resolution for the Vietnam vets from Mr. Riggy.
Yes, when I was doing some research for the Veterans Day resolution, I discovered that there is a Vietnam Veterans Day, and that's the 29th of March. And that's signified when we pulled the last troops out of Saigon in 1973. So that was designated by, I think, Barack Obama, President Obama, to be Vietnam Veterans Day. Those veterans, and I've always held this dear to my heart, they're mainly from my generation, and they didn't come home to ticker tape parades or anything like that, unfortunately. They served their country, they did their duty when they were called up, but they were kind of scorned, not kind of, they were scorned when they came back here. There was a lot of turmoil back in those days. And I think this is fitting if the city recognizes them for their service to the country. And I did reach out to Bill Frank, who was an in-country Vietnam vet, and he promised to bring some veterans there from Vietnam era. This is for Vietnam era, not just in-country. It could be in theater, in-country, serving our country in that time period. So they're ready for this on the 25th, and I think it's well-fitting that we give them the honor from the city of Schenectady that they deserve. So I would appreciate moving this out of your committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, thank you.
Motion to recess.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are recessed.
Thank you, and I'll call to order the Committee on Administrative Efficiency. And just one item, just a reminder, we're going to have to call for the public hearing next Monday regarding the New York State Paid Family Leave Act, and that will be next Monday up at our chamber. So I don't believe there's any action required on that, correct? I just have one other item to talk about. We're moving way ahead, but our council meeting scheduled for Memorial Day weekend, there, May 27th, is going to be changed to the Wednesday, May 29th. That day after, the 28th, May 28th, the bar board assessment review is going to be using the chambers, and we're required by New York State law to allow them to use that meeting space. So again, moving way ahead, so we'll announce it quite a few times, but you can mark your calendars. The very last May meeting will be held on Wednesday, May 29th, 7 p.m. up at the council chambers. Anything else to come before our committee here?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Karen, John, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Call order the Finance Committee. The only item on the agenda is the capital projects bond ordinance with Mr. Ferrari.
Council President, Mayor, Council. As you know, as we passed the 2019 budget, we had proposed about $23 million in capital projects funding. But out of that amount, we're looking here to only, we determined that about $7.1 million to be borrowed on the next issue for a bond anticipation note for the 2019 projects. You have a list of the projects and the cost. I just want to know if you have any questions on anything.
No questions?
It's not your committee.
Oh, sorry. It's yours. I'll just take it
I like
over.
that, yeah, take it away from me.
Don't see any motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
You have a motion to adjourn?
So
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to call to order government operations and just a placeholder with regard to the public hearing coming up to review the tax cap rates, right?
Have we posted those anywhere, Chuck or Sam? Have we made this public, what we're looking to do? I don't think we have.
That happens this week, that's one of the reasons we check where it's in there, so those are two in the office Tuesday.
Okay, so we'll have these out somewhere publicly that what we're looking to do, a proposal.
Well, they'll be
or
available
changes.
for examination in clerk's office.
Okay. Very good.
And then in addition, I also wanted to just discuss a program that I had the opportunity to meet and learn more about. If you remember, Kabir and his students came on Monday night to talk about the Schenectady WIN program, which includes training for the construction trade. They're interested in acquiring property from the city, so I just wanted to gather more information about the program and bring it to the council. Kabir and his students are here tonight if the council has any questions for them, but I thought I'd just give a brief overview. I've also spoken to Jesse Roylance at Washington Irving, who oversees the entire school, to kind of flesh out more of exactly what the program is, what their track record is, et cetera. But so for the first 6 months of the program, they go to a morning class to either earn their GED, or if they need English ESL classes, English as a second language class, whichever one is needed. That's followed by a life skills component, and also what's called the Certificate of Employability, which was something I worked on when I was at the chamber, which delivers soft skills, be to work on time, make eye contact, et cetera. Then in the afternoon, they have National Center for Construction Education modules, which includes lab work, a lab work component. Each module has a written text, and they're required to demonstrate the applicable skills. So it's not only written, but it's also a demonstration. They receive OSHA 10 training, and then after the 6 months, they actually have the opportunity to be hired by a local construction firm. So they work in the morning and then come to school in the afternoon. And as their skills strengthen, their pay scale reflects the improvement in their skills. So the class has 12 students. They learn framing, sheetrock, taping, plastering, flooring, and painting. And there's also a financial literacy piece to the program. So one of the questions that I've heard is, why aren't they working with SEAT, in conjunction with SEAT, and they have had conversations to that. But the two programs more complement each other. SEAT is more youth-based, and the program at Washington Irving is adult education. So they are supportive of one another's programs, and they continue to talk with one another. So in an effort to try to continue to enhance the program so that it's a best practice for Schenectady, and it's kind of a win-win situation, the students themselves came up with the idea of actually getting an actual house to renovate, and then having that house be sold to one of the students for home ownership. That, of course, income qualifies. And then the income from the tenant would then pay the mortgage and the taxes, and so that it would be a sustainable living environment for the student. That being said, they've put in some stopgap measurements to have a 5 to 10 year span where the program itself would hold the mortgage in case the student decided to walk away or whatever the case may be. And then there would also be a 3-month escrow requirement for the mortgage that they would keep in case the student couldn't get a tenant right away or a tenant moved out unexpectedly. So what they are asking from the city is that they're able to acquire a property to start the program. So once they get the first house and rehab it, they would then use the proceeds to purchase houses going forward, so that it would be self-sustaining after the first property. So as I said, I spoke to Jesse Roylance. I'm meeting with Rich Rizzo from the Land Bank, or talking to him tomorrow. One of the questions that came up for me right away was that if the program holds paper on the house and the program is nonprofit, we would need to ensure that taxes were being paid from day one. And I think ultimately the wish of the program is that they would get a property for a very small amount of money. The difficulty about that is that they really want cosmetic property, not to bring a derelict property up to code. They don't do electrical, plumbing, et cetera. But the other part of why I wanted to bring this to the council, and we'll come back with more information or discussion in accordance to what people have questions about, is that at least if we get an offer that comes before us from this entity, that we know what it is, we know what their intention is. The program has been in place for 3 years, it's been very successful, and they're looking to take this next step. So I just wanted to kind of color in what Kadir and his students had come to the rail and started to tell us about, but only had 3 minutes to do so. So if you have questions for them, they're here, and
Ages, what is the age that we're looking at here?
It could be anywhere from 20 years old to 45 years old.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
and we're very conscious of putting all the stop losses in place. Stop losses that we considered, and stop losses that came to us by way of other concerned bodies that if the city was to either donate or to allow us to acquire property for half the price of a cosmetic property, that is going to be secured, and that security is going to be 5 to 10 years, that there'll be a lien on the property, and the win-win process is primarily for municipalities to put the properties back on tax. Primarily, ultimately, it'll be an infusion into the community that they're going to see a face of young people, younger people involved in a concept that the city has authorized, that's by way of just one property to pay, for instance, half price. We were going after 1307 Union Street, it was costing $40,000. If we could have paid $20,000 for it and went into it and then got the equity out and continually buying property from the city. You know, he asking for one property and to continue now, class after class after class, continually buying properties from the city.
Thank you.
And we're asking you to please punch holes, as many holes as you can possibly think of, into the concept.
Other questions?
The class has designated these two individuals as the negotiator and the shop steward, because when we get on the job, we went to 966 Vermont Avenue to renovate a church, to renovate a garage into a community center. And so when we get on the site, she's the whip. She makes sure they get in there and take care of the business, along with Reverend Parsons. Reverend Parsons is the lab person, but she's the one that goes in and, you know, they hear what she has to say. She's serious about it. And the concept of turning a cosmetic property into a, what you would say, a turnkey operation, is going to be done in a record time. Record time, could be 48 hours, could be 1 week. But they're all going to go in and make sure that they do what they're supposed to do to make it happen. So it's a win-win for the city, and we want to promote it as that. And we're asking the city to really consider taking that opportunity out of 600 properties we have, out of this just as one property.
Right now, they're building walls and tearing them down in the basement of Washington Irving on a regular basis, right? They build a wall, they tear it down, they build a wall, they tear it down. So it would be good to be able to make
a couple of that we went to, and some other work as well too. So I just think it's a win-win, and I think it would be a chance. So this way, if in fact it doesn't work out, you get the property back.
Any other questions?
Well, then lawyers will make sure all stop losses in place.
Ms. Porterfield?
Mr. Islam, was your program also the one that helped at the Art Center?
Yes, and the arson as well. So we went in and we did demolition and extended the property over there. And so we're just excited about the opportunity. We're just excited about the opportunity. We believe that it's in all our best interests. It's a win-win.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll continue to have discussions and we'll be in touch.
Do we need more discussion, or we can go sign off on last night? Huh?
I'm
Thank you very
talking to
much for your
Mr.
time.
Russo
I
tomorrow.
appreciate you. Thank
Take
you.
care. Okay, is there anything else to come before government operations?
Yes, Madam
Mr.
Chair.
Riggi?
I've been wrestling with this for a while, since the last council meeting, And this has nothing to do with the special assessment district program at all. But the mayor brought it to our attention at that time that, you know, he's gonna live within the budget that the council gives them, and that's the reason the sidewalks didn't go back into the paving program as they used to be. So I've been considering, well, how can we fund this program? You know, to get, at least get it into the paving program, because right now the question seems to be, how do we coordinate the sidewalks with the assessment district with the street paving program? Well, there's gonna be a street paving program that'll be put in place pretty soon, and maybe we can reallocate some money to use this to start getting this back into the program the way it was. So then if somebody wants a special assessment, they want their sidewalks done separately, that can be done. But, you know, thinking of it, there is in the Smart City Initiative, there's $5 million in there right now. That so far, nothing's been brought to us as far as repurposing that. I'd like to call for a public hearing, you know, and get some input from the public, how they feel about that, and use a portion, or whatever they feel about using that to put the sidewalk program back into, with the paving program the way it once was. And it wasn't that long ago. So that was my idea, and the mayor brought it to my attention that, you know, he doesn't have this power, he wants to live within the budget, so maybe we have to give some more money into his budget so he can put that back in, as he said he would. I think that's one way to do it. And I just would like to call for a public hearing and hear from the public on this, on how they feel about reappropriating this money.
Questions, comments?
Well, I'm not sure that's a public hearing. It's the prerogative of the council in the paving program to say you're gonna pave so much in street surface or so much in sidewalks. You know, we did the analysis before, and the sidewalks, curb, street surface looks nice, but it's very expensive. And so you give up the ability to actually do street surface, and it plays catch up. You know, this time of year, we're always dealing with potholes, and the longer streets go unpaved, the greater incidence of potholes. So it becomes that balance, and we relied on the recommendations from the city engineer in terms of what the actual allocation should be. We're still focusing on street surface and have moved away from the sidewalk component of that.
Did you have a question, Ms. Porto?
No, I guess the mayor kind of answered. He said, so that would, you're saying that doesn't come to the public hearing, that's the council's prerogative if we said, you know, part of that money could go towards.
Correct. I don't think you can ask for public input, but it's not required to have a public hearing for that.
Mr. Reed?
With that, and I don't disagree if it's not a requirement, but I think it's good to get public input, especially if we're talking about reallocating maybe a good portion of money to do this and to put it back in. And again, the street program, in my opinion, I know there's a portion of that budget, we're going by zones, and there's a portion when they're to do the worst of the worst, it may be in another zone, but right now, the streets are in pretty tough shape, and that's what people have been crying for. I mean, that's what we heard the last month, 2 months, that's what we've been hearing about sidewalks along with the streets. So I would like to see that program put back in. And again, the special assessment, that's an addendum to that special assessment, I think, and adding that in. And that way, maybe more people can be happy. But I want to hear from the people, would they rather see a more smart city initiative, or do they want to see streets and sidewalks that are safe? I think that's what I want to hear from the people. How do they really feel about it before we make a move of reallocating 10 cents out of any part of our budget? I think it'd be the right thing to do, to look into this. So that's what I would like to see from this committee, is to move it and ask for a public hearing, and let's hear from the people, see how they feel about it.
Other comments, questions? I think we can, without formally calling for a public hearing, certainly raise the topic that we'd like to hear from people and have them come and speak at the rail about it. If there's not a public hearing required. So,
I don't know, is there one required, not required, or?
A public hearing is really required for a local law, or if you're doing an ordinance to change the city code. So, if we're just talking about repurposing money in the budget, then you can do that by resolution, if you don't have that public hearing.
Well, that's my thoughts.
So, put that out there. Ms. Porterfield?
That was my question,
Yes.
how to actually facilitate that if there's not gonna be a public hearing, so, you ready to address that?
All right, I was just gonna say, you know, I think you can certainly vocalize that on Monday night, that you'd like to hear more input from people, and also through the various channels, right, if we don't have to.
That's why I thought a public
Legally.
hearing would be the easiest way to
Yeah.
advertise it. We'd call for a public hearing, that people know what it's for. To try to get it out there any other way is kind of fruitless, I think, so.
Well, if anyone wants to second, we can certainly go down that road, but I think
What, for the, I
to
thought,
call for a public hearing, but I think it's not required, so it's,
I'm not opposed to having it though, so.
I'm not
if you're looking
opposed
for
to
a
people
second-
talking to it,
Right.
talking about it.
So are you asking for a second for a call for public hearing?
Well, I assume you're making a motion.
I would make a.
I mean, can we,
Can
can we
that's-
call for a
yeah,
public
that's my
hearing if?
question.
Yeah, to
if-
call for a public hearing.
It's
to
not
have-
required
Can we?
legally?
I can look into that. I, off the top of my head, don't know if you have a public hearing, anything you want. Usually there's a piece of underlying legislation, like we were talking about before, that gets sent to the clerk's office, where
Right.
it's there. But I can look into the answer, and it's your meeting, you can really do whatever you want there.
Well, why don't we table it for 2 weeks until we find out from Mr. Falatico whether legally we can do that or not, and then we can revisit it in 2 weeks, okay?
So just to clarify, what are we looking to do? You're looking to reallocate funding that we set aside for smart cities, is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
To put it towards the sidewalk / street paving.
Paving, yeah.
And I say we're bonded, right?
Yeah.
Aren't we the capital project specific?
I think so, yeah.
The money that we
I'd
borrow.
check into that and see the process for doing something with that. It's not an automatic.
Flip, you can't just take it from one pot to the other.
So once again, we'll work on that for 2 weeks, and
Yeah, because I think that money is earmarked specifically for the.
Because it's an ordinance, it's a bond ordinance, it's not a resolution.
Right. It's a whole different.
Yep. Okay, very
So,
good.
Mr. Falatico, can you look into that?
Yeah, I will look into the question about the public hearing.
Yeah. And the bond.
And the transfer of ordinance.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else to come before government operations? Moved by Ms. Porterfield,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Riggi, all those in favor?
Aye.
Call to order claims. The Harris property claim is pulled.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
So we're gonna have the tax cert for Home Depot, it looks like. Call for a motion to go in, executive session.
That was the
And
most
this-
detailed claim I've ever seen from you.
Ms.
That was
Porterfield, second.
Wait, the Harris?
Oh, sorry, I
That was
apologize,
Mr.
second.
Hold the second.
I'm trying to find my,
All those in
my
favor?
email. Aye.
There were some errors, so
Okay.
so you'll see it in 2 weeks.
With all the details?
Yes.
That was nice.
Is it Colonel?